This is 2FI, the first part we've already looked at in terms of the initial setup, and this part is where we're going to be calculating the potential covers that there could have been for February in each of these years. Now this depends on how many days there are in the month, and of course February can change. So if there are 28 days in February, then we know that we can multiply 28 by the potential covers. Well, let's have a look. Here's our potential covers. We've got 34 for La Grille, 2 sittings, that'd be 68. So we would multiply 68 per evening by 28 days. But this takes quite a few calculations, because we can't just put in the number. We also need to know whether this is a leap year or not, and so we've got to do quite a few interim calculations in order to find out what the possible covers actually are. So we're going to put a few calculations in, and just bear with me whilst we set this up, because what we're going to do is we're going to calculate the first day of the month. Once we've calculated the first day of the month, that's going to allow us to find out the last day of the month, for example 28th of February or 29th of February or 30th of March, or well, no, it wouldn't be 31st of March or 30th of April or 31st of May, and we can then work out the number of days that there are in that month. So let's start by calculating these. So to do the first day, well, I need to know the year, I need to know the month, and we're also going to need to know what the first day is, which is number 1. So we've already named this month, and I'm going to name this column here years. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a function called date value, which will calculate the value of a date for us. Okay, so we'll do date value, and the way we do this is we put in the date bit by bit. So the day is 1. We're then going to concatenate onto that the month. Well, that is this month, and we're going to concatenate onto that whatever the years are. Now the years, it will pick up from the current row as we copy it down. So that's the day, the month, and the year. And as you can see, it gives us a number. So what we're going to do is we'll format that cell, change it to a date, and there we go. We've now got 1st of February 2010. If I copy that all the way down, we've got 1st of February for all of them. If I was to change this to March, naturally that would change to March. If I was to change it to April, it would change to April. What we now want to do is calculate the last day of every month, because that will then tell us how many of the days there are in a month. And to do that, we're going to use a function called EOMonth. Now EOMonth takes a date, and I can't actually use named cells of EOMonth. They don't work with that function for some reason. And we're not going to be adding any extra months or any extra days on or anything, so we just say end of month, the first, whatever the first day cell is, and we'll just put 0 on the end to say that we don't want to add anything extra on there. If we close that, we can now see it's come up with the formatting problem, so we'll just change that to date, and look, we've now got 28th of February. If I copy this down, you can see for those leap years we're getting the 29th of February. Now what we've got to do is calculate what is the actual number of days. So I'm going to name this last day, because that's what it is. It's the last day of the month, and we're going to use the day function, okay, to calculate. We'll put in here last day. Oops, let's start to try that again. We're going to use the day function to pick out the day of the last day. So here we go. That has now picked out the last day of every month. So now we know the number of days in each month, we can actually calculate the number of sittings for each of the restaurants. So let's put some titles in here for each of those restaurants. Let's make sure that we're clear what this is about. This is our possible covers, so it's going to be the total possible number of covers. But we also need to know how many seats and how many sittings there are for each restaurant, because we can't calculate that information without the possible covers without that. So what we're going to do is we'll take from the question the number of seats, which is 44, 34 and 60, and we'll also take the number of evening sittings, which was 3 for Caverna, 2 for La Grille, 2 for Dilshad. That means that they use the tables 3 times, they use the tables twice, they use the tables twice. Just look back at the question, just check that we've got that information correct. What we can now do is calculate the possible covers. So for each evening, how many covers can there be? Well, it's going to be the number of seats multiplied by the number of sittings. So it's just going to be a straightforward calculation. So what I'm going to do is name this seats, and to name this evening sittings or eve sittings, and because we're going to use this in a minute, I'm going to name that days, and we're going to name this possible covers. So we'll just put that in here. Pos covers will do. Okay, so this is going to be the number of seats multiplied by the evening sittings. There we go. So that tells us how many possible covers there are each evening for each restaurant. Now I can multiply the number of days by the possible covers, and that will tell us how many possible covers there were in each month. I can copy that down, I can copy it across, and now we can see for each year, okay, in February, how many seatings there are, and you can see that it changes basically when we've got the 29th. But let's just show you, if I was to change this to March, or let's change it to May, and we can see the difference that the this hasn't worked because that should be linking to the usage, because I changed it on the wrong one. So we'll just change that back, and I should have put May in here, and we can see how it changes. And May is consistent for every year. It's only February that's different because of the leap years. So in the next tutorial, we're going to look at how we can now calculate the percentage usage, because we know how many possible covers we've got and how many covers were actually used.